Here is the front of a Bugatti Chiron Persport, and here is the rear half of a Bugatti Chiron Persport, and today we've got to connect, and that challenge has become increasingly difficult as Bugatti refuse to sell us parts.
$3 million. A wrecked Bugatti Chiron the factory refused to fix, and one phone call that could have changed Matt Armstrong's life forever.
And now we've got to figure out a way of how we're going to fix that so we can put it all back together and join the front half back to the rear.
But hidden inside that 80-page contract was a trap. A lifetime NDA, an intellectual property grab, filming restrictions that would have killed his channel, and one termination clause so brutal it stopped the deal cold. Matt walked away, quietly. No headlines, no announcement, just silence. So what did Bugatti really want from him? Why were they so desperate to silence the man who rebuilt their Veyron? And what's the deeper truth behind his refusal that is reshaping the entire hypercar industry? Hit subscribe and stick around, because this story goes way darker than anyone expected. When Bugatti came calling, it started with a phone call. Not an email, not a DM on Instagram, a phone call. Which, in 2024, when even Fortune 500 CEOs negotiate through assistants and Slack messages, tells you everything about how serious this was. According to industry insiders, a senior representative from Bugatti's Communications and Partnerships division reached out to Matt Armstrong's management team in early 2024. The conversation was short, polite, vague. They wanted to meet. They wanted to discuss a unique opportunity. They didn't say what the opportunity was. They didn't have to. When Bugatti calls, you take the meeting. A few weeks later, that meeting happened. And what was put on the table wasn't just a project. It was a once-in-a-lifetime, change-your-entire-life kind of project. Picture this: a Bugatti Chiron, one of the most expensive production cars ever built, with a price tag north of $3 million new, had been involved in a serious accident. We don't know the exact circumstances, and frankly, that's part of what made this so weird. Sources suggest the car belonged to a high-profile owner in the Middle East. The damage was extensive. Bugatti's own factory in Molsheim, France, had reportedly assessed the vehicle and declined to take it on internally. Why? That's the first mystery. Some say the owner refused to pay Bugatti's restoration fees, which can climb into 7 figures. Others suggest the damage was too embarrassing for the brand to fix in-house. Whatever the reason, Bugatti needed someone outside the factory to handle it. Someone discreet, someone skilled, someone who could rebuild a Chiron from the ground up without leaking photos to every supercar blog on the internet. That someone was Matt, and the offer they put on the table, flat fee of $3 million. Not for the car, for the project, for Matt's time, his workshop, his team, and his name attached to the rebuild. $3 million to do what he already does for free on YouTube, basically. It sounds like a fairy tale. Except, here's the thing. Fairy tales usually have a witch. And this one had several. The number wasn't the story. The number was the bait. Because the moment Matt's team started reading the actual contract terms, something didn't add up. The headlines that should have come with a deal. This big. They never appeared. The press release that should have shaken the automotive world. It was buried before it was ever written, and for good reason. What Bugatti was really offering wasn't a partnership. It was something else entirely. Why Bugatti was afraid of Matt Armstrong? Now you might be wondering, out of every restoration specialist on the planet, why Matt Armstrong? There are factory-trained Bugatti technicians in Molsheim. There are exotic car specialists in Dubai who service billionaire fleets for breakfast. There are old-world restoration houses in Modena and Maranello that have rebuilt Ferrari race cars.
When you arrive in Maranello, Italy, the prancing horse is there to greet you. And when you step inside the Ferrari Museum, you're up close with automotive history.
Older than most countries. So why a guy from Yorkshire with a YouTube channel? Look, the answer is simpler than you think, and also way more complicated. Matt Armstrong isn't your average UK car YouTuber. Over the last several years, this guy has built a reputation that's almost impossible to replicate. He started by tearing into crashed Lamborghinis, an Aventador, a Huracan, cars that most shops in Europe quietly refused to touch. Then he moved up the food chain, a heavily damaged McLaren, a wrecked Ferrari, and then the project that turned him from popular YouTuber into automotive legend, a Bugatti Veyron, written off after a serious accident, bought as a wreck that most people thought belonged in a museum or a scrapyard. That Veyron rebuild wasn't just impressive, it was historic. Matt documented every bolt, every weld, every panel of that build on camera. For over a year, his audience watched him take a hypercar that by every reasonable measure was totaled and bring it back to life. Structural damage that would have sent most shops running for the hills. Carbon fiber sections that demanded specialist repair. W16 quad-turbo engine that even Bugatti's own technicians treat like a religious artifact. He took all of it on. The videos racked up tens of millions of views. The car was driven again. The internet collectively lost its mind. And here's what made it special. He didn't do it with factory support. He didn't have Bugatti engineers flown in from France. He sourced parts through gray markets, salvage networks, and direct relationships with suppliers who normally only deal with the factory itself. He cracked things on that Veyron that Bugatti has spent serious money trying to keep behind closed doors. The wiring layouts, the diagnostic protocols, the carbon repair processes that the brand tells the world only their certified technicians can handle. In plain English, Matt proved that one stubborn UK YouTuber, with the right team and enough determination, could do what an entire luxury manufacturer claimed was impossible. And he did it in front of millions of viewers, in real time, with no edits hiding the failures. No PR team polishing the rough edges. That accomplishment did two things. First, it made him a legend in the supercar world. Second, it made Bugatti very, very uncomfortable. Because every time Matt showed something on camera, a wiring diagram, a carbon repair technique, a workaround for proprietary software, he was effectively giving away Bugatti's intellectual property to anyone with an internet connection. Free. Forever. Indexed by Google, and Bugatti knew it. Sources close to the deal say there were quiet internal discussions at Molsheim about whether to respond legally, whether to send formal letters, whether to discredit him in the automotive press. But none of that ever happened, because in the end, Bugatti realized something more powerful. If you can't beat the man rebuilding your cars on YouTube, you hire him. You bring him inside. You wrap him in contracts and clauses and NDAs so tight, he can never breathe a word of what he learns again. You turn the threat into an asset. That's why Matt was the only choice. He was already inside the gate. They just needed to lock the door behind him, and that's exactly what they tried to do. The $3 million contract was a trap. So Matt's team gets the contract. It's thick, like suspiciously thick, around 80 pages, according to people familiar with the documents. Now, a normal partnership contract for a high-value project might be 20, maybe 30 pages. 80 pages of legal text for a single restoration project. That's a red flag waving in a hurricane. And once you start reading it, you understand why. The first thing that jumped out, according to sources close to the deal, was the non-disclosure agreement. Standard, right? Every big deal has one. Except this one wasn't standard. This NDA wasn't just about keeping the project secret during the build. It was lifetime binding, as in, Matt would be legally prohibited from ever discussing the project in any form, in any country, on any platform, for the rest of his natural life.
By law, car makers have to report major problems so they can be fixed.
Exactly the problem that we were trying to avoid when we passed this law.
No documentaries in 20 years. No tell-all interviews after retirement. No casual mentions at a car meet. Nothing ever. And it wasn't just about the project. The NDA covered any and all information Matt would learn during the rebuild. The wiring secrets. The carbon repair techniques. The proprietary diagnostic codes, everything he'd been showing on YouTube for years. Once he signed this contract, he could never show any of it again. Not on this car, not on any future car. The knowledge would become Bugatti's property by association. Then came the intellectual property clauses, and this is where things got genuinely shocking. Sources suggest the contract included language stating that any techniques, methods, or innovations Matt developed during the project would automatically transfer to Bugatti, which means if Matt invented a new way to repair Chiron carbon fiber, Bugatti owned the patent. If his team built a custom diagnostic tool, Bugatti owned it. Even Matt's own original work he created, would become theirs, forever. The film restrictions were the third punch. Matt builds his entire career on documenting rebuilds. That's the whole point of his channel. The contract reportedly allowed almost zero filming, no behind-the-scenes content, no build progress videos, no reveal video at the end. The most Bugatti was willing to allow was a single, heavily edited completion piece, which Bugatti themselves would have final cut on. Matt would essentially become a ghost in his own workshop. There were more clauses too. A non-compete that would have prevented Matt from working on any other Bugatti for 5 years after the project ended. A clause giving Bugatti the right to inspect his workshop at any time unannounced. A clause requiring all of Matt's employees on the project to sign individual NDAs. This wasn't a contract. It was a cage with gold bars. And the deeper Matt's team read, the more they realized Bugatti wasn't trying to hire him. They were trying to silence him. $3 million wasn't payment. It was a buyout. And that's when the conversation shifted. The moment Matt Armstrong walked away. Now here's where it gets crazy. According to sources close to the deal, there was one specific moment, one specific clause, that broke the entire thing. And it wasn't the NDA. It wasn't the IP transfer. It wasn't even the filming restrictions. Brutal as those were, it was a clause buried about 60 pages deep into the contract. Innocent-looking, written in dry legal language. But once Matt's team explained what it actually meant, the room went quiet. The clause gave Bugatti a right at their sole discretion to terminate the project at any point and reclaim the vehicle, with no compensation owed to Matt beyond a small fraction of the agreed fee. In practical terms, that meant Bugatti could let Matt invest months of his life, his team's labor, and his workshop's resources into the rebuild, and then pull the plug at any moment if they decided they didn't like the direction, or didn't like Matt, or just changed their mind. And here's the kicker. The clause also stated that any unfinished work, any partial progress, any parts Matt had sourced through his own networks, all of it would become Bugatti's property the moment the contract was terminated. Matt would walk away with nothing but a fraction of the money and a binding lifetime NDA, preventing him from ever talking about what happened. That was the moment, sources say. Matt looked at his manager, looked at his lawyer, and said something along the lines of, "This isn't a deal, this is a setup." And just like that, the conversation was over. There was no shouting, no dramatic walkout. No, "I'll see you in court" speech. Matt reportedly thanked the Bugatti representatives, told them the terms didn't work for him, and ended the meeting. Polite, professional, done. And then came the silence. For weeks, neither side said anything. Bugatti didn't announce the deal because the deal had collapsed. Matt didn't announce it because, well, what would he even say? "Hey guys, Bugatti just tried to lock me in a contract that would have ended my career, But don't worry, I dodged it. That kind of video would have invited lawsuits, leaks, and a whole world of trouble. So he stayed quiet. But the silence itself was the loudest thing in the supercar world that month. Insiders started whispering. Other creators in the rebuild space started asking questions. Why was Matt suddenly turning down certain calls? Why did his upload schedule seem slightly off? Why was his team more careful than usual when discussing future projects? The answers, as we now know, were all sitting in those 80 pages. What you have to understand is this. Matt didn't just walk away from $3 million. He walked away from the prison that money would have built around him. And that decision, more than any rebuild he's ever done, might be the smartest thing he's done in his entire career. But the real reason he refused goes even deeper than the contract. It goes to the heart of what YouTube actually is.
We're opening a lawsuit against you because
Matt Armstrong.
Over 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube, 240 million views.
And what Bugatti tried to take from him. The real reason Matt Armstrong said no. Let's talk about what really happened. Because the contract clauses, the NDA traps, the IP grabs, all of that was the surface story. The real reason Matt Armstrong refused $3 million is something deeper. And honestly, it's something every creator, every entrepreneur, every person who's built something with their own hands needs to understand. Matt's business isn't rebuilding cars. Not really. His business is trust. Think about it. Why do millions of people watch a guy in a work-fix supercars when they could watch professionally produced content from Top Gear or Doug DeMuro or any major automotive publication? Because Matt is real. He shows the failures. He shows the parts that don't fit. He shows the moments where he's frustrated, where he's stuck, where he doesn't know what to do next. He's not selling you a polished product. He's selling you a journey, and that journey is built on the unspoken promise that what you're seeing is honest. The moment Matt signs a contract that prevents him from showing his audience the full story, that promise breaks, the trust evaporates. And once the trust is gone, the channel is gone, the brand is gone, the career is gone. $3 million is a lot of money. But it's nothing compared to what Matt would have lost by signing it away. This is what Bugatti didn't understand. Or maybe they understood it and didn't care. Because here's a question worth sitting with. Why was Bugatti, one of the most prestigious car brands on earth, so desperate to bring a YouTuber inside their walls and silence him? The answer, according to insiders, points to something Bugatti is genuinely struggling with. The brand's mystique. The whole, only we can touch this car narrative, is being chipped away every time someone outside the factory successfully repairs one. The Veyron rebuild was a wound. A Matt-led Chiron rebuild, broadcast to millions, would have been a fatal blow. They didn't want him to do the work and tell the story. They wanted him to do the work and hide it. Because the moment regular people see that Bugattis can be rebuilt without the factory's blessing, the entire ecosystem of dealer-only servicing, factory-only restorations, and inflated parts prices starts to crumble. So the $3 million wasn't a fee. It was a silence fund. And here's why this changes everything for the supercar content industry. Matt's refusal sent a signal to every other creator in the space. You don't have to play by the manufacturer's rules to win. You can build something independent, something powerful, something that outlasts any single payday. The hypercar world is no longer controlled only by the factories. It's controlled in part by the creators who decide what stories get told. Matt could have been Bugatti's employee for $3 million. Instead, he stayed Bugatti's competitor for free. And that decision, that single, quiet, polite no in a meeting room, might be the most important moment in modern supercar YouTube history. What would you do? Take the $3 million and stay silent forever, or walk away and keep your freedom? Matt Armstrong made his choice, but the debate is just getting started, and trust us, this rabbit hole goes even deeper. Our next investigation dives into the silent rivalry between Bugatti and Koenigsegg, the rumors, the leaked secrets, and the drama nobody talks about. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe, drop a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. This is Stars of America, where horsepower meets controversy, and the truth always finds its way out.